I'll be honest with you. When I walked into that Italian place on my birthday, I was expecting a quiet table, a decent lasagna, and maybe a toast from my wife. Instead, I got a front row seat to a performance I didn't know I'd been cast in. The maitre d' gave me a knowing smile like we were co-conspirators. Right this way, sir. Your wife is already seated. I followed him past the clinking wine glasses and candlelit couples, wondering how she'd gotten here before me. Usually, I was the punctual one. Ashley, my wife of 6 years, believed time was more of a concept than a commitment. And then I saw her. She was seated near the back, in one of those half-circle booths they give to large parties or couples trying to rekindle something. Ashley looked good, too good. Like she dressed for an occasion I hadn't been invited to. Hair curled. Makeup sharp. Black dress she hadn't worn in over a year. Her phone was face down on the table, which was the first red flag. Ashley never put her phone down unless she wanted something else to hold her attention. Across from her sat a man I'd never seen before. Clean cut. Tan. Wearing a fitted gray blazer over a shirt I probably couldn't afford even if I sold my car. He looked like a real estate it came to life. Ashley waved me over like this was all normal. "Logan, this is Brent," she said, her tone sugary enough to give me a toothache. "You remember me mentioning him from the gym?" No, I did not. But I smiled and nodded like I did. Brent stood and offered a hand. His shake was firm, like he'd practiced it in a mirror. I noticed his watch, Rolex, if I wasn't mistaken. And I wasn't. I had stared at one long enough last Christmas before settling on a more budget-friendly timepiece that now felt like a joke. I took my seat and immediately knew something was off. It wasn't the way Ashley kept looking at Brent. It wasn't even the way Brent looked at me like he was trying to read the fine print on a contract. It was the menu, 3 entrees already circled. My birthday dinner, and they had already made decisions. "So," I said, doing my best to keep it light, "is this some kind of intervention? Am I drinking too much iced tea again?" Brent laughed. Ashley didn't. "No, babe," she said, brushing a loose curl behind her ear. "We just thought this would be the best way to have a grown-up conversation." Ah, the phrase, grown-up conversation. That's the kind of thing people say before they tell you the dog died, or they maxed out your credit card, or worse. I leaned back, my stomach tightening. "Okay, I'm all ears." Ashley looked at Brent, then at me, and said, "It's about us. I think we've been disconnected." And Brent's helped me realize some things. Brent gave me a sympathetic nod. "No disrespect, man. I'm just here for moral support." Moral support. Right. That's why he was drinking my wine and sitting across from my wife like this was a team meeting. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind you let out when the last Jenga piece falls and the whole tower collapses. Ashley reached for my hand, but I pulled it back. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. "Let me guess," I said. "You've been talking. A lot. Working out. Finding yourselves. And somewhere between protein shakes and shared playlists, you decided my services as a husband were no longer required." Neither of them responded. I nodded, looked around the restaurant. People were laughing, eating, living in a world where their spouse hadn't just blindfolded them and shoved them toward the edge of a cliff. "Well," I said, lifting my glass, "happy birthday to me." The waiter came by mid-crisis, smiling like this was just another Thursday night. I guess that's the thing about restaurants. Doesn't matter if someone's proposing or getting emotionally body slammed. The breadsticks keep coming. "Would you like to hear about tonight's specials?" he asked. "No," I said without breaking eye contact with Brent. "I'm already choking on one." He blinked, then left, probably to tell the kitchen about the table in Section C going full HBO. Ashley shot me a look. You know the kind. The "don't embarrass me" look. The one wives give husbands when they bring up politics in front of dinner guests. The problem was, I wasn't a guest at this table. I was the one paying the mortgage. "Logan," she said, her voice dipping into that condescending therapist tone, "this isn't how I wanted it to happen." "Then how did you want it to happen, Ash?" I asked, folding my napkin slowly like it was a ticking bomb. "Let me guess. We split a tiramisu while you casually mentioned you've emotionally upgraded to Brent 2.0. Brent cleared his throat. "Look, man." "No, you don't get to look, man me." I cut in, sharper than I meant to. "You're sitting across from the husband like this is your house now." Newsflash. It's not. Ashley exhaled like she was the victim here. "You haven't exactly been present either, Logan. You throw yourself into work. You forget dates. You shut down when things get difficult." "Difficult?" I repeated. Ashley, I lost my job for 2 months and spent the whole time trying to figure out how to keep us afloat without making you panic. I thought I was protecting us. I didn't realize you needed someone with abs and inspirational quotes. That one landed. Brent stiffened. Ashley shook her head. This isn't about muscles, it's about feeling seen. Seen. There it was. The word every cheating spouse thinks turns betrayal into a spiritual journey. I stood up, not because I was done, but because I needed to breathe. Well, I hope Brent here sees you clearly, Ashley. Sees the way you toss people aside when they're struggling. Because if he doesn't now, he will. Brent looked up at me, mouth half open. This doesn't have to be hostile, you know. You're right, I said. It could have been civil. If this wasn't my birthday dinner. And if you weren't trying to be the main course. I dropped a few bills on the table, not for them. For the waiter who had to watch a marriage disintegrate between bites of focaccia. Then I looked at Ashley one last time. You had a man who would have walked through fire for you. You traded him for a guy who walks around fire so he doesn't scuff his shoes. And with that, I walked out. No shouting. No scene. Just the sound of a man realizing the life he built was already halfway dismantled, and he didn't even get to hold the hammer. The air outside was colder than I expected. But for the first time in a long time, it felt clean. I got home that night and stood in the doorway like a man returning to a crime scene he didn't know he was the victim of. The house was quiet, too quiet for a place where I used to hear laughter, music, and her humming while she microwaved the same 3 meals on rotation. The lights were off except for the hallway, which smelled faintly of lavender and something else. Something off. It hit me then, that this wasn't the beginning of the end, it was the end. I'd just shown up late to the funeral. I walked straight into the bedroom. Bed was perfectly made. Corners tight. Decorative pillows placed like a hotel room. Ashley never made the bed like that. She always said it was a waste of effort for something you just mess up again. I sat on the edge, still wearing the same jacket from dinner. My hands were in my lap. One of them was still red from how hard I clenched it under the table. The other, from holding back everything I wanted to say. Then my phone buzzed. It was from her. You didn't have to react like that. You embarrassed yourself. That was it. No, are you okay? No, let's talk. Just a cold line of blame. Like I'd ruined her night. And that's when the switch flipped. I stood up. Not out of anger, out of clarity. I needed answers. Not suspicions. Not theories. I wanted hard, unshakable truth. I wanted it in my hands. I went to the closet first. She kept her heels there. Most were dusty. She hadn't worn heels around me in months. Said they hurt her feet. But right there on the third shelf, a new pair of red stilettos. Expensive. No dust. Like they'd just come off a date. I moved to her vanity. She kept her tablet there. Never locked it. She thought I trusted her too much for that. She was wrong. First thing I did? Opened the photo app. First photo? Her. Half-dressed. Standing in a hotel room I didn't recognize. Date stamped last weekend. Last weekend she'd told me she was at her friend Lacey's baby shower in Sacramento. Next few photos? Mirror selfies. Ashley smiling. Champagne bottle in the background. One photo had Brent in it, shirtless, holding 2 glasses like some twisted Valentine's Day ad. My stomach dropped. Then I checked her messages. And there it was. The evidence. Brent. Booked the room again for next Thursday. Can't wait to see you in that red dress. Ashley. Only if you bring the same cologne. The way it lingers on my skin drives me crazy. My eyes burned. Not from tears. From staying wide open too long. I took screenshots of everything. Every message. Every photo. I sent them to my email. I labeled the folder Truth. Then I backed out of her app. Clicked open my own photos. Looked at one from our last vacation, the 2 of us on a beach in Monterey, smiling like we'd already conquered whatever life had left to throw at us. I stared at it for a long time. Then I whispered, guess the waves were the only honest thing that weekend. And I started to plan. Not for a fight. Not for a confrontation. But for something better. Something colder. Something final. Because this wasn't heartbreak anymore. This was war. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but they forget to mention the prep time. And brother, I was just getting started in the kitchen. After I found the photos, the texts, the hotel receipts, and enough arrogance from Ashley and Brent to fuel a jet engine, I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I didn't throw her things out the window like some sitcom cliche. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and started building folders. Digital war rooms. One labeled Ashley. One labeled Brent. One labeled the exit plan. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to walk her out. See, most people make the mistake of reacting. They catch their spouse cheating, and they immediately start throwing plates and calling names. That just gives the other side ammo. Now you're the crazy ex. You're the unstable one. The narrative flips. Suddenly, the cheater is the victim and you're the footnote in your own story. Not me. I'd already lost my marriage. I wasn't about to lose my dignity too. The next morning, I woke up early. Made coffee. 2 cups, one for me, one for show. Old habit. I left hers on the kitchen counter like nothing had changed. Like I hadn't spent half the night dragging her digital skeletons into neat little evidence folders. Ashley waltzed in 10 minutes later. Fresh from a shower. Her hair damp. She kissed me on the cheek, like nothing was brewing beneath the surface. Morning, she said, casual. Morning, I replied, sipping the coffee she didn't know I poisoned with irony. She scrolled her phone while sipping from the cup I made. Probably texting Brent. Probably something like, he was so calm last night. It's kind of scary. LOL. I smiled to myself. Let her laugh. Let her relax. Dead calm is always the scariest water. That day at work, I started putting the real plan together. Not just exposing the affair. That would have been too small. Too reactive. No, I needed the kind of outcome that would sting in 5 years, not 5 minutes. Ashley and I didn't have kids, thank God for small mercies, but we shared a mortgage, a joint account, and a circle of mutual friends that still thought she was the charming yoga in the park angel with great banana bread. What they didn't know, that angel had horns. And a hotel rewards program. So I made calls. Subtle ones. First was to my buddy Nathan, corporate lawyer, high-functioning cynic, and walking encyclopedia of how to burn someone legally. Nate, I said, hypothetically, if a man found out his wife was cheating, and he had evidence, what's the most elegant way to ensure he doesn't walk out of the marriage with less than the shirt on his back? Nate chuckled. First off, tell the man congrats. He's just become a client. Second, he waits. He plays it smart. He doesn't accuse her. He lets her dig her own hole. Then he jumps in, not to bury himself, to build a stage. So I waited. For a week, I played the role. Smiled when she walked in. Nodded when she lied. I even liked a photo she posted from her girls' brunch, where she cropped out Brent's arm but forgot to remove his reflection in the wine glass. Brent, if you're reading this, don't take pictures with mirrors when you're the side dish. Rookie mistake. I gathered more. Hotel booking confirmations under her name. An Uber receipt from my account. Yeah, she forgot I could still see those, taking her to Brent's loft. I called it the Affair B&B. I didn't need more, but I wanted it. Like an artist adding brush strokes to a masterpiece. This wasn't just documentation. It was craftsmanship. One evening, after dinner, she sat across from me with a glass of red. Legs curled under her like we were still in Act 1 of our marriage. She looked at me carefully. You've been really composed lately. Oh yeah, I said, eyes on the TV, volume low. Just been thinking. About what? I paused. Took a sip. Life, I said. The future. What it's gonna look like. She smiled like I just read a horoscope that mentioned change is coming. I smiled too, because she had no idea what mine looked like. A few nights later, Ashley told me she was going out with the girls again. I nodded. Have fun. Be safe. She kissed me, lingered, and said, I'll be home late. Don't wait up. She was right. Because I wouldn't be there. While she was off making memories with Brent at whatever overpriced rooftop bar they chose, I was at our house with movers. I had spent days quietly shifting key items to a storage unit. Personal documents, family photos, a few heirlooms from my late father that I wasn't about to leave behind. The rest? I left. She could have the furniture, the blender, even the stupid houseplants I watered for both of us. She loved them when she remembered they existed. By the time midnight rolled around, I was gone, but not before leaving one little thing behind. A box on the kitchen counter. Inside, printed screenshots. A flash drive. One of Brent's shirts that she accidentally brought home and tried to pass off as a laundry mix-up. A photo of the 3 of us from her last birthday, circled with a note. It read, Found the cracks. Thanks for helping me finish the demolition. Then I walked out the door. No slamming. No tears. Just keys left on the hook. Like a punctuation mark at the end of a book she never bothered to finish reading. I expected a reaction. A text. A voicemail. Something. What I didn't expect was radio silence. Ashley didn't call. Didn't message. Didn't even fake a "Did you forget to lock up?" Panic. It was like she'd either not seen the box, or she was pretending it didn't matter. That was fine. Silence, after all, is just noise with better manners. But I had time. And patience. You see, when someone betrays you, the worst thing you can do is try to fix it. The best thing you can do? Let the truth stretch its legs and walk straight into the middle of their life. And that started with her inbox. I didn't hack anything. Didn't have to. Ashley had used our joint cloud account for years, mostly to back up photos, videos, work files. She forgot that most of her app data, even messages, got mirrored there. All I did was log in, scroll through the files, and queue up what I needed. Let me paint the picture. Monday morning, 7:48 a.m. I sat in a cafe across town, black coffee, blueberry scone, nothing fancy. Laptop open, headphones in. A list of recipients pulled from her contact sync. Coworkers, family, a few friends who always gave me polite smiles and side glances like they knew more than I did. To each of them, I sent a simple, neatly formatted email. Subject: a clarification from Logan. Hi everyone. I know there have been questions about what happened between Ashley and me. Since there's been some confusion, and let's be honest, some gossip, I figured transparency was the cleanest route. Attached you'll find a timeline of events, with receipts and calendar data. Screenshots of relevant text messages between Ashley and Brent. Photos taken from Ashley's shared cloud album. I've redacted anything that would embarrass anyone unnecessarily. I'm not looking to humiliate anyone, just to step away from lies with my dignity intact. If you've ever cared about either of us, you deserve the truth. Logan. Attached was a PDF, professionally formatted. Dates, quotes, even a side-by-side comparison of Ashley's explanations and actual events. Page 6 was titled, "He Was Just a Friend," and featured a delightful series of Brent's shirtless mirror selfies sent with captions like, "Missing your side of the bed." I didn't send it to everyone. Just enough. Friends. Her aunt. The one who always called me the good one. A couple of coworkers. And, naturally, Brent's boss. Who, lucky for me, appeared in one of the texts as that old man breathing down my neck. Faced with tears of joy. Click. Send. Done. Then I went back to my coffee. Later that day, the phone rang. Finally. Blocked number. Bold move. I picked up. "You smug little." Ashley's voice cracked halfway through the insult. "Morning, sunshine," I said. "Sleep well. You think this is funny? You think ruining my job and humiliating me is going to make you feel better?" "No," I said, calm as lake water. What made me feel better was knowing I never have to see your fake morning smiles again. She was breathing hard, like she'd run upstairs and never stopped. "You sent that stuff to Brent's work. He got called into a review. His promotion's gone." "Actions," I said, "meet consequences." "You're cruel. And you're careless," I said. "I told you that night at dinner, this wasn't over. You thought I was bluffing. You thought I'd roll over. But guess what, Ash? I got tired of being the nice guy holding the grenade with the pin still in." She went quiet, long enough for me to imagine her standing in that perfect little kitchen, barefoot, phone trembling, wondering how the house of cards she built in secret came crashing down in one email. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said finally, voice smaller. "No," I said. "You meant for it to stay secret." Big difference. Later that week, I heard through a friend, well, a mutual acquaintance with a flair for passive-aggressive updates, that Ashley had taken a leave of absence from her job. Apparently, HR didn't appreciate the overlapping timelines between her leadership mentorship and her personal extracurriculars with Brent, who worked 2 levels below her. Word was, Brent got relocated. New department. Less pay. Fewer people. Basically Siberia, but with a Keurig. I didn't cheer. I didn't toast it. I didn't even tell anyone what I'd done. Because this wasn't for them. It was for me. Now let me be clear. I wasn't out for destruction. Just exposure. Light. Truth. I didn't call Ashley's mom. I didn't go scorched earth with friends. I didn't post it online. But I made sure the right people knew the right story. Not the version where I was a distracted husband who just didn't get her. Not the version where Brent was some sensitive soul who showed her how to feel again. Just the facts. And the facts spoke volumes. One night, a few weeks later, I got a handwritten letter in the mail. Ashley's handwriting. I sat on my porch to read it. Sunset low, wind just enough to make the paper flutter at the corners. She didn't beg. Didn't scream. It was almost apologetic. Sort of. Said she'd been going through something, that she lost sight of what mattered, that she didn't recognize herself in the mirror anymore. There was no ask, no olive branch, no big emotional twist, just a PS at the bottom. I thought you'd fall apart. I never imagined you'd vanish like that. I don't know whether to be scared or impressed. I smiled, and then I tossed the letter into the fire pit, lit a match, and watched it curl into ash. Because that's the thing. I did fall apart. Quietly. Fully. But only long enough to rebuild. And the man who walked out that door? He wasn't the same man who walked in every night wondering why the woman he loved kept drifting further away. That man was gone. And what took his place? Well, let's just say he keeps his folders labeled, his exits planned, and his heart locked up until earned. You ever sit in a house after a storm passes? You know the feeling quiet, like the air itself is trying to decide if it's safe to breathe again. That was me, 2 weeks post-detachment from the life I once called ours. I had moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment across town. Nothing fancy. One couch, a coffee maker that worked too hard, and a view of the highway that reminded me every day that people keep moving, no matter what. And that's what I did. Moved. Woke up, hit the gym, answered emails. No more tension over dinner. No more wondering who she was texting. No more sleeping beside someone who felt like a stranger in my t-shirt. Freedom doesn't show up with fireworks. It shows up in the silence, when you realize you're not waiting for a lie to fall out of someone's mouth. That's when I remembered what it felt like to belong to myself again. Word got around. Not fast, not flashy, just that steady drip of reality seeping into her carefully curated image. The brunch group stopped inviting her. Her gym buddies became distant. Brent stopped showing up in her photos altogether. Apparently, she tried telling a version of the story where I spied on her, exaggerated things, made her feel controlled. But the people who matter? They'd seen the receipts. Literally. They knew. Meanwhile, my circle started growing. Old friends I hadn't heard from in years started reaching out. People I thought were just her friends told me they had always liked me better. They just didn't want to take sides. Turns out, the truth doesn't need PR. It just needs daylight. It was a Sunday morning when the call came in. Number I didn't recognize. I answered it, thinking it might be a client. Logan. The voice caught me off guard. Soft. Nervous. Female. This is Monica. I'm Brent's ex. Now that was a plot twist. Apparently, Brent had a long-time girlfriend before Ashley. One who'd stuck by him through job changes and family losses. They were on a break when he met Ashley. Of course. She found me through a mutual contact. Said she'd gotten wind of the whole situation after Brent suddenly blocked her on everything and tried to move in with Ashley. Monica wasn't calling to commiserate. She was calling to say thanks. Your email got forwarded to me. From a friend. I saw everything. I just wanted to say, you saved me years of heartache. Funny how the ripples of truth travel further than the lies ever hoped to. Months passed. The dust settled. The ache didn't vanish, it just stopped screaming. Then one morning, an envelope slid under my door. No return address. Inside was a wedding invitation. Ashley and Brent. Well, I'll be. The ceremony was set for June. Outdoor venue. Vineyard. You could practically smell the forced joy. I stared at the cardstock for a long time, then flipped it over. On the back, in handwriting I recognized too well. No hard feelings if you don't come. But I thought you'd want to know I'm happy now. That was her play. One last jab dressed up like peace. I didn't respond. But I did RSVP. No, I wasn't planning to show up. I had no interest in being the ghost at their table. But I had one last card to play. The morning of her wedding, a small package arrived at the vineyard under the name Ashley Donovan. Inside, a neatly framed photo. It was from her birthday dinner. The Last Supper. Brent mid-smirk, Ashley half-laughing, me staring straight into the camera like I knew something they didn't. Taped to the back was a simple note. Thanks for the memories. P.S. The wine was overpriced. I never got a response. Never needed one. Because that night, I sat on my apartment balcony, sipping my own glass of red, watching the sunset sink into the city. Somewhere, miles away, two people were starting a life built on a foundation of half-truths and shared betrayal. And me? I was whole. Not because I got even, but because I got out. That's the revenge no one sees coming.